All right, welcome to Talking Investing. I'm Tom, and as always, this is not financial advice. Today, I want to go through Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners. One Bitcoin miner had some big news last week. We're going to go through that and why I think it puts them in the running for a top 4 Bitcoin miner. Bitcoin actually had a big rally last week and a potential breakout, and the markets hit an all-time high last week. So we got a lot to go through. We're going to go through all of our normal charts, plus some additional new stuff. If you're new to this channel, we talk about Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners all the time. So if that's content you're interested in, please consider subscribing to the channel. Also, if everybody could do us a big favor and smash the like button. We're going for 500 likes. It helps the channel out a lot. I want to thank everybody who has subscribed and smashed the like button. Also, we're just about to hit 21,000 subscribers. So thanks again to everybody. All right, let's talk about Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners. I want to start out with a miner that had a big announcement last week, and that was Iris Energy, or IREN. On Wednesday of last week, Iris Energy put out this press release. IREN's expansion plan increased to 30 exahash in 2024, and then it says they achieved their 10 exahash milestone ahead of schedule, so that's the second milestone they've gotten ahead of schedule. Iris Energy had previously announced plans to get to 20 exahash by the end of the year, and that's kind of where they left things. So this is a big update, but this is not the only thing in this update. So here's their plans to get to 30 exahash by the end of 2024. Additionally, if we scroll down to key highlights, you're going to see there's a sentence in here: additional Bitmain S21 Pro miners purchased options 10 exahash supporting expansion pathway to 40 exahash in the first half of 2025. So with this, Iris Energy has doubled their potential expansion plans. Their previous plans were to get to 20 by the end of 2024. Now they're looking to get to 40 exahash by the first half of 2025. So this does put them on paper, if they execute this plan, this would put them in the top 4 Bitcoin miners. We've been talking about the top 3 Bitcoin miners for a long time now, and I want to make it clear there's an awful lot to do between now and then. Iris Energy just hit 10 exahash. They're talking about getting to 40 exahash basically in the next 13 months, so these are very aggressive plans. But if they do this, just to quickly go through, the only other companies that have plans like this, Marathon on April 25th put out a press release saying Marathon Digital Holding increases 2024 hash rate target to 50 exahash. So this is the most out of all the Bitcoin miners, 50 exahash in 2024. Remember, Iris just said they hope to get to 30 in 2024 and 40 in the first half of 2025. Here's Cleanspark from their latest investor presentation. You're going to see with Cleanspark, by the end of 2024, they hope to get to 32 exahash and then to 50 exahash in 2025. The only other Bitcoin miner with plans to get to 40 plus exahash is RIOT. Now, RIOT does have a plan. They say provide clear path to 100 exahash, but for the time being, I'm not going to talk about 100 because that is way out into the future, 2027. But if you look shorter term, by the end of 2024, they're looking to get to 31.5 exahash, and by the end of 2025, they're looking to get to just under 41 exahash. So those are the only 4 companies that have made purchase orders and are pursuing infrastructure to get to 40 plus exahash at this point. I just wanted to put IREN's press release in perspective. This would put them in the same neighborhood as these 3 companies. From there, there's a gigantic drop-off. Basically, the next group of Bitcoin miners are aspiring to get to more like 20 exahash, and from there, the group below that is looking at getting from 8 to 10 exahash by the end of 2024. So there's starting to be 3 different groups, and then really a 4th group, which is much, much lower than that. There's still a lot of Bitcoin miners stuck in the 1 or 2 or 3 exahash range. Okay, so enough said about that. Let's take a look at what happened last week. This is the price action for Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners on the week ended May 17th. So that was Friday. So on a week-over-week basis, you're going to see the first thing that jumps out in gold, as always, is Bitcoin up 11%. There were a bunch of Bitcoin miners that did outperform Bitcoin last week. However, there were a bigger group that were somewhere very near zero, and then a few that underperformed. One we'll talk about in particular. So there were a few really disappointing days in the week last week, but overall, you're going to see it was actually not a bad week at all. So for Iris Energy, which we just talked about, which announced huge growth plans, they were actually up 26% on the week. And I will tell you, after hours on the day they made that announcement, their stock was plummeting, and then it reversed. By Thursday morning, it opened up and it had a big rally. So on the week, Iris Energy was up 26%. That was the big winner on the week. week, but you're going to see some other big names that performed very well. HUT was up 15%, and I think that was on their earnings report. The market liked their earnings report. Marathon was up 13%, so they are the largest Bitcoin miner by market cap, and they actually outperformed Bitcoin last week. RIOT, which is the third largest Bitcoin miner by market cap, was up 9%, so that did underperform Bitcoin just a little bit, but in the neighborhood. And then, like I said, you'll see a lot of Bitcoin miners between 0 and 5%, so you can take a look and see if any of your Bitcoin miners that you're following are in this group. Then a couple of nano caps that were red, but the one that I wanted to talk about, really the only non-nano cap or microcap stock that was in the red last week was TeraWulf, which was down 13%. So for whatever reason, the market did not like their earnings. TeraWulf did have earnings last week. Basically, all the larger Bitcoin miners have announced earnings as of the end of last week. So over the last few weeks, we've gotten a lot of earnings reports. And for whatever reason, TeraWulf's was received poorly, and they are down 13%. So this is one of those scenarios where, you know, if you like TeraWulf, if you looked at their report and you think they're doing well, you may believe that the market's reacting in the short term incorrectly here. So I'm not recommending you buy TeraWulf. Obviously, it's underperforming as we see on this chart right now, but these are why I put these charts together. I look for outliers, anything that might be a clue as to something that may be either something worth putting on a watch list or vice versa, something that may be running too fast that you need to be careful of. That's what happened last week for Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners. Let's take a look at what's happening year to date. This is the Bitcoin miner chart year to date through May 17th. So a few things jump right out. Bitcoin is having a very good year. Bitcoin's up 60% on the year as of last Friday. As of this Monday morning, as I'm making this video, it's still basically in the exact same spot it was when we closed on Friday. We'll see what happens throughout the day today. So that is beating all of the Bitcoin miners. The other thing that jumps right off the page, with one exception, every single Bitcoin miner is in the red year to date. Some of them are having horrific years. So we'll start at the top. CleanSpark is in the green. CleanSpark up 45% year to date. That is by far the best performing Bitcoin mining stock. CleanSpark has had huge growth this year. They went from 10 exahash to 17 exahash, essentially in a 19-day window. And we saw they have much bigger growth plans ahead. So their stock has been rewarded. They're performing very well from a stock standpoint. After that, Cypher is down 7%. Cypher's been fluctuating between green and red, hanging around 0. DMG Blockchain's down 15%. That is also a microcap stock, but then you have Iris Energy down 16%, Marathon down 17%, and TeraWulf down 19%. So we saw week to date last week, TeraWulf had the worst week, but year to date, actually their performance is outperforming most of the Bitcoin miners. Then there starts to be a big drop off. There's a group down between 30 and 50%, and then there's another group at the bottom down basically between 60 and 70%. So you can see we've been talking really for the last year and a half that we think there's going to be winners and losers in this cycle for the Bitcoin miners, and it's going to have a lot to do, actually it's going to have everything to do with their performance and execution on their business plan. So those Bitcoin miners that have big growth plans, that plan to improve their efficiency, and more so that are actually executing those plans and operating like CleanSpark, are being rewarded. This year-to-date chart does not look good. So we're going to see if we can get these Bitcoin miners back into the green by the end of the year. I will tell you, my personal opinion is it is going to take some time. I will tell you, the next chart that I'm going to show you is where I think the Bitcoin miners bottomed out, and that was about 1 month ago now. So let's take a look at that. All right, this is a chart looking at the last 4.5 weeks. So this goes back to April 16th. Basically on the channel, we talked about the fact that we thought April 16th was a bottom for the Bitcoin mining stocks, and that the Bitcoin mining stocks basically would hold that and go up from that point. Now, I'm not saying they're going to go up in a straight line. And also, it's important to remember, please remember, this is not financial advice. You guys need to do your own due diligence. There are no guarantees for any of the things we're saying or predicting. We're just trying to look at the data and show you this in as many different ways as we can. So you can see April 16th was just 4 days before the Bitcoin halving. So essentially, this is what the Bitcoin miners have done since the halving. And you're going to see all but one Bitcoin miner has held these April 16th lows. So I do think that was a local bottom. Again, this is not financial advice, but so far, most of these companies are up significantly off of that bottom. There is one exception. So first we'll point out Bitcoin since April 16th is up 7%. So it's off of its recent highs. In March, Bitcoin got up to almost $74,000. It's hanging around more at about $67,000. But still, since April 16th, it's up 7%. You'll see the vast majority of the Bitcoin miners are outperforming Bitcoin in this 4.5-week window, and some of them are significantly outperforming Bitcoin. So unlike year to date, where the Bitcoin miners are dramatically underperforming, I think we are seeing a shift. The Bitcoin miners have just started what I think is going to be a pretty long journey, maybe 3, 6, 9 months, for them to make up this lost ground on Bitcoin. And again, obviously, there's no guarantee that that's going to happen. Stronghold's up 64% in that same period of time. Now, Stronghold did put out a press release saying that their company is up for sale. So they got a gigantic bump on that. Iris Energy's in second place, up 45%. We went through the press release that they just put out, and that's why they got a big bump. So those two have been a standout, but Core Scientific's up 40%. Marathon, which is the largest by market cap's up 37%. So you can see while Bitcoin's up 7%, there's more than half of this list up over 20% in that same period of time. There are a few lagging here at the bottom. TeraWulf's up 7%, which is on par with Bitcoin. Any is up 6%, which is less than Bitcoin. That is a nano cap stock. But Bitfarms is underperforming Bitcoin in this same period of time. Now, Bitfarms did have an announcement. They fired their CEO. I think their stock in the short term is paying the price for that. And then there is one stock that did not hold its low from April 16th, and that is Hive. Hive is down 4% in this period of time. So I find this to be a bit of a mystery. I'm not sure why that is. So again, this is one for me I've added to my watch list and I'm taking a second look at, but of course, not financial advice, but these are what I look for on these charts. Okay, very quickly, this is a chart comparing Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners from their high in the previous cycle, which was in November of 2021. So this is not their all-time high. This is their high from November of 2021, back when Bitcoin hit its all-time high in the previous cycle. So you can see Bitcoin is just a little bit off of that number as of last Friday, but the Bitcoin miners are dramatically off of that number. All but really CleanSpark, which is down 32%. That's the best performing Bitcoin miner in that period. And then Cypher, which is down 61%. From there, you get a drop down to 71% with DMG, which again is a micro or nano cap stock. But after that, you get Marathon and Riot, which are the largest and third largest Bitcoin miners by market cap. They're down 77 and 78%. That's very similar to where they were at this point in the previous 4-year cycle. So there is reason to believe in the previous cycle, they did go from down almost 80% in the months following the halving. They did go all the way back up to new all-time highs. So again, that is no guarantee that that's what's going to happen this time, but they're acting very similarly to what they did in the previous Bitcoin cycle. And then you're going to see it goes down from there. And at the bottom, it's worth noting, there's 4 stocks here down between 98 and 99%. So for me personally, and I think from a market standpoint, the market's basically given up on these stocks, in my opinion. So while there might be some day trading to do or swing trading to do, I find it highly unlikely that these stocks are going to approach previous all-time highs. But you never know. That's just my opinion. Again, not financial advice. But the one thing this chart will show is every single Bitcoin miner is in the red from its high from the previous cycle, and they're very deeply in the red at this point. So a lot of ground to make up if they're going to hit new all-time highs. Okay, just to take a look at the broader market last week, the market performed very well last week. The Dow, the S&P, and the NASDAQ all hit new all-time highs. They didn't close there on Friday afternoon, but they did hit new all-time highs during the week last week. The Dow is now over 40,000 for the first time in history. So that was a gigantic number to reach. You're also going to see silver and gold are performing very well, in particular silver. So if we take a look at just last week's activity, Bitcoin did still lead the way, up 10.6% here in gold. But then you're going to see silver up 9% last week in 1 week. When you see the year to date, silver is having one of its best years it's had in the last really 40 years. Ethereum was up 6% last week. And then everything else was in the green. The NASDAQ up 2%, gold up just under 2%, the Russell up 1.7, S&P 1.5, and the Dow 1.2. So everything in the green. Everything had a good week. Like I said, a lot of things hit their new all-time high last week. If we switch this to year to date, you're going to see everything is in the green year to date. So what we're comparing here are the 4 major US indexes for the equities, the 2 largest commodities, which is silver and gold, and the 2 largest cryptocurrencies, which are Bitcoin and Ethereum. So when we look at all of these things, you're going to see year to date, they're all in the green, and a lot of them are having very good, very strong years. Bitcoin up just under 60% on the year. Ethereum up 34%. So Ethereum is lagging Bitcoin. Bitcoin dominance still continues at this point. But silver year to date up 30%. That is an incredible move for silver. Gold up just under 17%. And then you'll see S&P and the NASDAQ up just around 11%. So really good years so far. This was much better than expected coming into this year. Now, we've got a lot of year left. We'll see how the rest of the year goes. The Dow up 6%. And then the Russell still lagging behind, as it has been for 3+ years now. The Russell in last place, but it is now in the green, at least, up over 3% year to date. So that's a summary of what happened last week with Bitcoin, the Bitcoin miners, the market overall. We're looking for Bitcoin to potentially have a breakout. Bitcoin has been stuck in a range, but it is showing some signs of life. And year to date, you can see it is still up in a big way. So though we've been consolidating over the last several months, it's still been a very good year. So drop down in the comments any thoughts you have, particularly on Iris Energy and the 4 companies that have plans now to get to 40+ exahash. What's your thought? Do you think these companies are going to achieve these goals? Of course, if you made it this far, please remember to smash the like button, subscribe to the channel. Thanks again for watching, and I hope everybody has a great week.